Hello and welcome to my review of the Silurian Candidate, the last story in the Ace and Mel trilogy of 2017 and the first release of the double main range release in September. So without further ado, let's look how this story is presented, then I'll go on my thoughts on the story, and then I will do a which is better. Was the 2016 Ace and Mel trilogy better than the 2017 one? So we'll see which is the trilogy you should go out and buy if you were to buy one of these trilogies. So without further ado, let's look how the Silurian Candidate is presented. Okay, then for the cover art, we've got the 7th Doctor there, we've got the 3 Silurians with a story. I'm not going to try and guess which one's which. So we've got Speridus, Avok and Chordok. We've got one of the Carla droids there, and a dinosaur, and Ace and Mel running away from it, and the 7th Doctor banner there. The side and the back, so if you want to know more about the Silurian Candidate, then you can. We have the cast list there, and the total running time being 120 minutes. We've got advertisement for Time in Office by Eddie Robson, which I have reviewed, which is my previous Big Finish review. If you haven't checked it out, then I'll put a link in the description for you to check that review out. We've got advertisement for Doctor Who magazine, production credits, and we have the alternative cover. And the disc art is exactly the same for both discs. So the Silurian Candidate was a story I was really excited to listen to because of the Silurians. Not just any Silurians, it is the 1970s one, and I've got to say 2017 has been a year filled with us getting them, with them featuring the Unit Assembled box set, but those are the new series ones, so and them featuring alongside their aquatic cousins. So this certainly has been a long time coming for them to appear again in the main range, with them last appearing in Blood Tide, my first Big Finish release number 22 back in 2003. By the way, you should check out Blood Tide, it's brilliant. It is a brilliant story. So yeah, will this be a triumphant return for them? Answer, yes. This story is a perfect way to conclude the end of the 7th Doctor's run in 2017. Part 1, we have this great scene to kick the story off with Ace and Mel talking about the Doctor, with Ace giving Mel the heads up that the Doctor's gone all mysterious, saying he has unfinished business to take care of. Yeah, so you're instantly intrigued, what has the Doctor got to finish? But back to Ace and Mel, and I think it's great for those two characters to kind of have that interaction, because Mel hasn't seen the dark and manipulative 7th Doctor. You know, Mel's used to that clown 7th Doctor, you know, with Ace trying to prove Mel that the Doctor, you know, isn't that clown figure what she wants. But that really sets the theme and tone of the story, with it being quite tense between the Doctor and the TARDIS crew later, and really just sort of set the seeds that this story is going to be quite a tense one. But overall, part 1, I have to say, is a great builder episode. It sets up the story nicely, introduces the characters and the threat, and I will be honest, I didn't expect to hear the Silurians so soon, with us getting a glimpse of them halfway through part 1, and we have the Doctor and Ace doing their own little thing, and Mel's left on her own devices, and the cliffhanger you could consider predictable if you know your Silurian antics. But not only do we have the Doctor being secretive, we have Ruth, this character Ruth, which I'll talk about later, who's got this sort of hidden agenda, and also the Silurians. What have they been plotting for 4 years? But like I said, it's a great introductory episode to the story, and it just flows really well. Part 2 continues to flow at a steady pace, with the Doctor's side of the story answering the questions like the Doctor's plan, but that's not revealed in full, so it keeps the intrigue and the mystery going. And also Professor Ruth's motifs are revealed as well, but we do get a more action side on sort of Mel's side of the story. And we do start to slightly touch upon the political side of the whole East and West bloc, practically on the brink of Armageddon. As for the Silurians, they don't appear in this part at all, not until like the very end of the story. So if you want some Silurian action in this episode, you're gonna have to wait. But this story really does start to ramp up the tension with a cliffhanger, what just makes you want to listen to episode 3 straight away. 3, it does feel like a very 1970s style story, with the whole sort of main political side of the story happening, with a change in location to this sort of James Bond style base and island, and we're introduced to one of the leaders from one of the blocks, and is basically Matthew J. Elliott taking the mick out of Donald Trump, because there are a few similarities between this character called Falcon and Donald Trump. As for the Silurians, this is when they start to really come into play, with us meeting another member of their triad, and we start to hear of the repercussions from the events from Warriors of the Deep, And we do have a nice little action moment with a plane crash, and the question is raised, who is the Silurian candidate? And the cliffhanger, well, I didn't expect that to happen. Part 4 is full of tension as the Doctor and Ace's friendship is basically at breaking point, leading to some great character interactions between them, and also nuclear war is imminent, so the tension rises rather well. And this story, of course, it does sort of end, it does become very much a traditional Silurian story, but yeah, a very good part of the story. The Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, like I said previously, this is the classic 7th Doctor, which I love, with him being very secretive, with him talking about, you know, I've got this unfinished business I want to take care of, and having that sort of mysterious side of him talking in riddles. And we see his fury and anger, which is just great, because he just loses it in like episode 2 and 3 and I think 4 as well. So it's just great to see that sort of fury, what McCoy's Doctor's been bottling up throughout the story, and then he just blows. It's just absolutely brilliant. And you just honestly think, when you're listening to this, whose side is the Doctor on? Is he on the human side or the Silurian side? And McCoy just brings him to life. Ace, played by Sophie Aldred. Now this is a great story for Ace, as we really see Ace kind of take a teacher role in part 1, with her sort of explaining to Mel that the Doctor isn't the man what she knew, which really does set the theme for the TARDIS crew. And sort of near at the end of the story, we really see, you know, that at breaking point, with Ace still feeling that she has to prove herself to the Doctor, leading to Ace being fairly aggressive towards the Doctor. You know, and she doesn't want to leave the Doctor's side because she just doesn't trust the Doctor, which just leads to some really nice scenes, which are just fantastic. And there's one bit which I really do like, you know, when Ace sees a dinosaur, everyone's in terror, and Ace is just absolutely loving it. Now we do see Mel quite confused by the Doctor, as she hasn't seen this side to the Doctor, and we do get some great moments from Mel, with her saying, you know, sometimes, you know, she wonders, you know, are the companions of the Doctor's heart? And, you know, Mel's trying to find compassion in the Doctor. And Mel does get a fair bit to do within the story, with her trying to decrypt a hibernation unit. And she does get a pretty badass moment in episode 3. Right, let's talk about the big bad threat of the story, the Silurians. So, we have 3 Silurians within the story. We have Spiridus, Avok and Chordok, with Spiridus and Chordok played by Nick Briggs, and Avok played by Fiona Sheenan. And I will say both actors bring the Silurians to life brilliantly, with their voices being spot on. So Spiridus is very much a traditional Silurian leader figure, you know, because you normally have that one Silurian who's constantly cross, with him going, oh, filthy apes, they must be destroyed. So yeah, he's got pretty extreme views, so he's quite tetchy and aggressive. Now Avok, like I said, played by Fiona Sheenan, I guess she's sort of second in command. You know, she's trying to calm sort of Spiridus down, and sometimes has sort of that comic relief moment, but she's very reasonable and logical, and, you know, she's quite calm and collective, and you can't help but feel sorry for her at the end of the story. Chordok is the scientist, with him getting some great scenes with Mel, and sort of is playing sort of the interrogation role, wanting to know the Doctor's plan, and is a person of learning, not violence. And Chordok sounding much older than the other Silurians, so that's nice to have that little differentiate between them. What bits the Silurians do feature in, they are great, and they will do any means to get what they want. You know, they want to know what the Doctor's up to, because they know he's a threat. And like I said, this story does deal with the aftermath of Warriors of the Deep, so I would say it is a great little continuation for them. And you may wonder, why the 1970s Silurians, why aren't the Warriors of the Deep Silurians not being used? And the simple answer is, Nick Briggs doesn't really like the Warriors of the Deep Silurians. And I think he also said in the behind the scenes that he didn't think the voices would fit the tone of the story, which is fair enough. But to be honest, I would quite like to see the Warriors of the Deep Silurians make an appearance, because it'd be quite cool to see those Silurians on a cover for a big finish. So yeah, I'd quite like to see that. But yeah, we have great world building for the Silurians, with their city and learning more about their technology, like their third eye. Professor Ruth, played by Fiona Sheenan. Yeah, great character, again with that hidden agenda. Very typical scientist character who can be pretty ruthless and has no remorse. And yeah, she's just pretty brutal in part 2, and she's just brilliantly played. So what are my overall thoughts on the Silurian Candidate? I will say it is a successful story to round off the trilogy, and I love the way that we've seen the dark, mysterious 7th Doctor make an appearance, as that is what I love about the 7th Doctor, and it's great to explore the effects that has on the companions, and we do sort of have that tension between the Doctor and the companions, and we have the tension in the sense of a nuclear war is imminent. So it's very much a story of now, with the ideas and concepts, and the story does mirror today's world, and you know, having the Silurians appear is a nice little treat, and they're brought to life excellently, but I can't help but feel we needed more of them. Just, you know, I get that it shows the power of them, with just 3 of them could start a nuclear war, with them very much working in the shadows. So not only would I have liked this story to have featured more Silurians, but I would have liked them to feature more within the actual story, because, you know, when listening to this story, I did sort of leave me thinking when listening to it, when are they next going to appear? When are the Silurians next going to feature within this story? So it did lead to some moments feeling a bit padded, but we do have a few nice little references to Fenric, Absalom Dark, Fires of Vulcan, another 7th Doctor audio, and Blood Tide, and I think as well the Silurian Gift. And I love the idea of the Carla droids, those things there, which is great. So what would I rate the Silurian Candidate? Now, I've seen reviews of this story getting 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, so would I agree with that? Not really. I'm going to give this story 8 out of 10. It's a good solid story, but it could have utilised the Silurians a bit more, since this is their sort of return to the main range since, you know, release number, you know, 22. So I would have liked more Silurians and them to feature more within the story. So it's that time of the video where we look at which trilogy is better for the 7th Doctor, Ace and Mel. So A Life of Crime, probably one of the worst Big Finish stories I have listened to. It just did a sort of a hell-bent thing and is just an abomination. Didn't like that one little bit. Fiesta of the Damned, probably the best story out of the 3, but still nothing spectacular. And Maker of Demons, good idea, but the execution wasn't very good. Right, 2017, will this be an improvement? High Price of Parking by John Dorney. Yeah, it seems to fit into a sort of season 24 bill of a story, and it just feels like a story what we've experienced before with like The Warehouse. But yeah, still a good story. The Blood Furnace, pretty good story, but nothing what I was expecting. I was hoping for this dark story. Instead it become this very yeah, it wasn't a story I expected. I mean, I have reviewed it, so if you want to know my full thoughts on The Blood Furnace, check that review out. And the Silurian Candidate was a good solid story. So if I was to get one of the 7th Doctor, Ace and Mel trilogies, it would be the 2017 one. Considering 2017 is the sort of 30th anniversary year for the 7th Doctor since he debuted on our screens, I kind of think that Big Finish should have done a special celebration trilogy, in the sense that, you know, we have a villain from each of a villain from each of his seasons. So season 24 you could have the 7th Doctor up against the Big Finish Rani, because that's a story what I would love to hear, is him up against the new Rani from Big Finish. For season 25, maybe the Psychic Circus and the Gods of Ragnarok, maybe, or the Cybermen again, because I think the 7th Doctor needs a Cyberman story. And for the last one, maybe like a Battlefield sort of story, with him sort of becoming that sort of Merlin character maybe, or possibly up against the Cheetah People. But for this trilogy, I would say it's a pretty good trilogy, a vast improvement on the last 7th Doctor and Ace Mel trilogy, with the Silurian Candidate being probably the strongest of the bunch. So yeah, that concludes this review of the Silurian Candidate. I hope you have enjoyed this review, and I'll see you in my next Big Finish review, whatever that will be. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. So thank you very much, and goodbye.